In this video, we're going to focus on how we can use the local storage to insert a name here, and then afterward, once we refresh the page, it will show it as well. So if I say here, for example, James, and then if I do this, and then now if I refresh, you can see here, while we refresh, it still maintains here. And if you look here now in our local storage, let's refresh this, you can see it's being updated with this. And of course, if I say here now, Nick, and if I refresh here, it now changes to this. But also we want to make sure it changes here. Here it changes as well. You can see here the key and value pair where the value indicates the name of it. So let's start to look how we can use this. So let's start to look how to use the local storage to display a value in JavaScript. To do this, we first must be able to insert a value in the local storage. So let's start to work on it. I'm going to use a very basic item. I'm using Sublime, but you can use any coding editor that you want. But because of that, because of Sublime, I can just type in HTML, tab, there we are. Then you can see here the title, which I copied and put it in there. Alright, so now we have this. What I want to do now is we're going to say here the input, and this input has no real class, but it has an ID. I'm going to say ID equals name. And if we do this, tab, there we are, enter. So we get the name here, and then what we can say here, type will be equal to text. There we are. So now we have the input here. We have all of this ready, and of course an input should not have like this, just like that. So now we have this here. Maybe we could do here a placeholder, and this placeholder will say enter name, save, refresh. There we are, ABC. So what we want to do is whenever we put in something here, it will be stored in the local host, and then when we refresh it, normally it will refresh by default to enter name. It will then analyze if we have any value already stored in a local host. If yes, then ABC should appear again, and if nothing, in that case, blank. As simple as that. So what we're going to do here then is we're going to make a JavaScript. So I'm going to say a script, tab, enter. So we're going to select this, and then we're going to say here, I want to grab this specific item here. So, well, first of all, I want to make sure this is on load. I want to trigger this on load. When it loads, basically when it loads the window or the browser, in that case, immediately it will check if there's a value yes or no. So what I'm going to say here is window, which basically refers to the browser here, this browser window, or this is what we call our inner window, but it's window in general. So then we're going to say add event listener. And what we want to do here is we want to say here, trigger this on load. So the moment it loads, it does something. So I'm going to put a comma here. The event itself, we don't have to register. So I'm going to leave it like that. Normally you could put an E here if you would need to extract certain items on it. But in this case, we don't need that. So we can just leave that blank. So then what we're going to do here is we're going to put in here, when it loads, what should it do? Number one, it needs to grab here the ID name and check, first of all, if there's anything, or to set it. And if that is the case, we want to make sure as well it will insert the data in there and also extract it. So what we're going to do here, constant, and we can just give this the ID, or we just get a name, and I'm going to say equals, and I'm going to say a document dot, and then here I'm going to use query selector string value hashtag name. Basically the hashtag stands for the ID, very similar in CSS. So you might say, why are we doing this and not maybe get document dot document dot get element by ID? It appears that query selector is even a tiny bit faster in searching for an ID if it's like this. It surprises me because the other one would be more specific. However, that is the case. So we're going to go with this. Secondly, what they say is, as in for programming, this is a very useful thing. Having the same code here. Imagine if you would have another item later on that needs to be dynamic, and that will be a class, then you can just do a dot class. If you would have here a command like get element by ID, that would mean that for classes you need to change the code as well. So this is very consistent, and simplicity and consistency is a key in coding. Alright, so now we have this. So the next thing what I want to do is I'll say a constant, and then let's assign the username. And the username is basically what we're going to put as well in our local storage. So we're going to say here this, and we're going to say local storage dot get item. Here I'm going to say here basically the name, what we can say here, maybe user name or customer name, doesn't matter. Put in here this. Search for something like that. If we cannot find anything, in that case, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to put in here these lines here basically, that's just under your delete button. And then we're going to say here, just show nothing. So it's this or nothing at all. Basically this or that. So then we're going to start working on it. And what we want to do now is we want to then, of course, look at this. We're going to grab, well, the username we have. What we want to do here now is look at the name here. We're going to say here, name.value equals what exactly, whatever the username shows. So if I save this right now, refresh, it doesn't do anything here. If I open up developer tab, and then if you are on the developer tab here, what you can do is go to this here, and then you go to look for the application. You can see here we have the storage, and what we want to do here, the local storage, you click on this, you can see here item. If you refresh this, nothing happens here. Let's say here ABC. Then if I refresh, nothing happens here. Alright, so it doesn't recognize anything. We didn't set any value yet. We only get the item. So right now it understands there's nothing because it doesn't find any value of username. So what we're going to do now is we're going to say name. I'm going to say here dot at event listener. And I'm going to say here let's change whatever the value would be. So we're going to say E. In this case we can register the event itself. And then within here, all I'm going to say here is the local storage dot set item. So here we get the item, and getting is basically extracting an item. Setting is inserting a value. So what we're doing here is, what are we going to set? Well, remember we have here the username. So we want to make sure that this username value, and this is basically what we call our key value pair. Yes, I'm going to explain later on what that is. But we're going to put in this here, say comma, and then what we want to do is we want to get the value. So what we're going to say here, e.target.value. This E is the event being registered here. So once we did this, semicolon here, save, refresh. Alright, so now if I say here ABC, refresh, you can see here now what's happening. If I refresh, it shows it as original. But if I refresh here, because basically it's being refreshed, but it doesn't instantly show here, we need to click here on the refresh. And what is happening now? We have the key and value pair. So you're very familiar with an array usually where it has a number, let's say, or very commonly with an object that's like name, and then name equals, in this case ABC. So this is the key, which is this one here, and that's the value. So what we can do here is basically here the element or the event, the target value we want. So we have this one here, and what we could do here, let's change that. If I do here right click, I can delete this. If I refresh here now, you can see it's gone. If I refresh now the page, if I click on this, it disappears as well. And if I say here now Nick, and then here if I refresh, you can see here it works, and if I refresh this, it works as well. So being registered. However, if I say here now James, what will happen here now is refresh. It will recognize this. And this is only on change. On change basically means when we change the value here and move away from it. The moment that the activeness of this bar here disappears. And there we are. And that's it. So with this, of course, this is just a very tiny item. We could create a nice to-do list here where the to-do list is only visible for your computer screen, while other people might have a blank to-do list because they didn't insert any values. That's the core reason for this. So let's delete this, and we're done here, and probably another video will go more deeper into this.